few days ago on the main channel, we released our first ever leather kit and tutorial video to go along with it. And we're really excited about that, so go check out that video after this one. But in this video, I'm actually making another one of those bags because during the filming process, we ended up with one extra body panel piece as well as a lining. So I don't want those to go to waste, so I'm gonna make another bag. But I've actually made several of these bags before. So in today's video, to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm going to be making this bag blind. Just kidding. I'm just going to be making it in a bit of a different way. And my inspiration for this idea actually comes from our recent photo contest, where our customers sent in pictures of their projects and we drew a winner. So I'll pop a picture of the project I'm talking about right now on the screen. I love the colors of that bag and how playful it was and how fun it was. So that's kind of how I'm going to make this tote bag, and we'll see if it turns out cool like that one or if it just looks tacky and gross, but I'm hoping for the best, so let's get into it. So this body panel, like I said, has already been cut out, so I can actually set it aside for now along with the template piece for that. But now for the pocket, the straps, and the corner tabs, it's time to pick some colors of leather that are going to go well with this green to get that colorful look. So I pulled some leather and found some scraps from past projects, and this is what I'm thinking at the moment. I found some more of the red, and I think this is called turquoise in the same cowhide splits. And then I also got some of our soft sides leather in a navy, if that'll focus, and then a white, which I thought might stand out a lot. So I'm thinking blue for the pocket, because I think the blue and the green will look nice together. Maybe red for the straps could be pretty interesting. And then one of these will be for these corner tabs right here. That's the plan. Let's make it happen. And one thing I'm very cautious about when working with a template or a pattern is to make sure it doesn't shift while I cut. So I always use a couple of leather weights, and then once that pattern is in its spot, I never move it until it's completely cut out. So I do pretty much whatever I can, contort my body so that I don't have to move that pattern. I've even sat on the table before, just so that I know and have that peace of mind that it's exactly the shape it's supposed to be. We'll let that get tacky for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll fold it over and sew that rolled edge. Using the masking tape like I just did to mark off where the glue is going to go really keeps everything looking nice and tidy. Even though it's the inside of a pocket and no one will ever see it, why not make it look nice? Another color to add, why not? And anytime you're changing threads on the top side of the machine, you can always just tie the old thread to the new one and then feed it through, and it does all the hard stuff for you. If you tied a good knot, that is. Pretty easy. Quick test sew to make sure my tension and stitch length are looking good. That's the responsible thing to do. Never skip that step. But now we're ready to sew. And I actually really like the way that this blue on blue is looking. Making straps is actually one of my least favorite parts of the bag making process, just because the margin for error is so small. Even a 1/16 of an inch, when you put the straps together, if you're off, it'll be super evident. But the way that I get the best results is to use our clear acrylic ruler and just line up the leather in those crosshairs on the 1 inch mark and just take it slow, use a leather weight to keep everything in place, and I usually can get good results that way. Now it's time to glue these straps together, and I'm going to be using contact cement to do that. Right now they're about 31 inches long, and as you'll see on my template piece here, I'm going for 30 inches by 1 inch. But I actually like to glue them while they're a little bit oversized and then trim them down so that the ends are perfectly flush. And then I will punch out these holes in the radius once they're glued together, just so everything is exactly the same on both sides of the strap. But there's a lot of ways to do straps, so let me know in the comments which method works best for you. I've been trying to speed up my workflow by using the grid lines on our cutting mats, and those grid lines worked perfectly when trimming these straps down to 30 inches. And if you're ever having trouble with a hole punch, make sure you get rid of all the leftover holes in there, and it should work much better for you. I like to use a scratch awl. Much better. The red and blue remind me of the Texas Rangers, my favorite baseball team. Go Rangers. Another thing I'm very cautious about when making bags is when I am sewing around a corner, whether it be 90 degrees or a rounded corner like this one. I think taking the extra few seconds and really placing each one of those stitches in the perfect spot really make the final product just look a lot more refined and more high quality. And now that the pocket is sewn on, I'm going to add some rivets on the corner of the pocket. And I'm using black rivets for this to kind of go with that bag we're taking inspiration from. And this might be one of the last times you see me hand set a rivet because we have a new tool coming that's going to make rivet setting about as easy as can be. And a quick check-in on all of our leather pieces. You can see how the color scheme is coming together. I'm going to set the leather pieces aside and I'm going to sew the lining. And right here I'm cutting out some reliefs and removing some excess material on the top and bottom parts of that side seam. This is just going to make sewing a lot easier on the gusset and when we sew in the lining later on that rolled edge. Removing some material just declutters everything, gives your presser foot a place to land, and makes everything go much smoother. And I didn't just eyeball those measurements, those reliefs are actually marked on the pattern that's included with the kit. Just look at those back stitches. Perfect. No matter how many tote bags I make, sewing the gusset is always the most nerve-wracking part. But luckily with our template, everything should line up perfectly and make this as easy as possible. That cutout at the bottom of the side seam will help a lot as well. And sorry for the overexposed footage here, but I needed the light for this part. Now it's time to put the lining in the bag together. So I will quickly turn this right side out, but I'll leave the leather part inside out. And glue this to the leather using this guideline right there. And gluing is not the most fun, so I'll speed through this part. But one thing I did notice when working with this leather and the duck canvas is that it takes a little bit extra glue on the duck canvas to get it to stick well. So that's one thing to note if you're ever using contact cement with a cotton canvas. And even though I've made 5 of these bags at this point, I did forget one step, which was adding a guideline on the lining piece. That guideline shows where I fold the leather over, hiding that seam of the duck canvas and making sure that there's no exposed edges on the bag. All right, day 2, and all that's left is to sew the top stitch right here on the opening of the bag, install some rivets, and then we're all done. And the reason that I'm doing the top stitch while the bag is inside out like this instead of turning it out and then doing it is because no matter what you do, the top side of your stitch, which is this side right here, is always going to look a little bit nicer than the underside. So while the bag's inside out, it allows me to sew on the top side of the bag so that the most pretty side is outward facing. Bag is turned. The last piece of leather I need to figure out are these corner tabs. I think my gut's telling me white. After a couple more minutes of staring at it, I changed my mind again and I'm going with the navy because I think it'll match that dark blue stitching that I've been using a little bit better. Side note, this is our newest knife and I just wanted to say this thing is gorgeous. And it's super sharp. Look at this. Pretty nice. So now I need to punch out the holes for these corner tabs, and most of the time I punch out holes, I use one of our big poundo boards. But for this case, I'm actually using our small cutting block and poundo board, which are perfect to put inside the bag. So this really comes in handy when you need to squeeze into a tight spot to cut or punch something. And quick note on hand setting rivets, use a lighter hammer, something like this that you can really control. Don't try to use your biggest, heaviest maul because it's just really easy to mishit it and have it go sideways. So smaller the hammer, the better for rivets. And that is it for this project. Thank you to Amy M for the project inspiration. And if you're curious, this bag took me about 5 hours to make, but that was with filming. So it's probably about a 3 to 4 hour project if you were to make one. And if you want a more detailed instructional video on how to make one of these, I'll leave that video right here or here. Still figuring out how YouTube works. But you can watch that video and you can buy that kit that is now available. Like I said, this is our first leather kit and we're really excited about it. So go check that out. Subscribe to the channel to help this brand new channel grow, and I'll see you in the next video.